Liar's Bar. I think they use AI voices though, and I don't really want to play games that use AI voices, to be honest with you, chat. I know I'm like in the minority with that, but I could be wrong. I don't know if they did. I could be just saying lied. I could be lying. Liars AI? It does. Yeah. Okay, AI haters. Like, you know, I have like AI rap on the thing. I don't really give a if you use AI for some goofy dumb shit, but it's like when you're trying to sell a product where you could easily get, like, you could pay someone whose actual job it is and who would sound better in every scenario, it's like, there's no reason not to. Especially when there's so much work put into the game in the other areas, you know what I mean? But that's why it's frustrating, especially when there's big games that do it. Obviously, I know Liar's Bar is not a huge game, but like, I remember there was another game a while back that was a really big game that used AI voices, and I thought that was like abhorrent. And it's like, I understand with like, to me, voice acting is so easy to get. It's so easy to get voice acting. There is no shortage of voice actors that will literally drop everything for a reasonable rate, like then tomorrow, and that you can direct and have a bit more personal, you know, have something a bit more customized to what you're trying to do. And then, you know, but AI voice acting is free. Yeah, but these game studios who are spending millions on games, if you hire like a voice actor to do like an announcer, tops, you might be paying him like $1,000 or $2,000. And it's like, okay, and now you get to avoid all this controversy. Yeah, it's frustrating. Boomer take, how can an indie dev afford VA? Well, I didn't say indie dev. I said, how can a million dollar game afford that? But how can an indie dev afford VAs? I mean, I don't think they have to. There are plenty of voice actors who are willing to do work for free. Obviously, they're not going to be like professional standards, but you're making an indie game, you know? If you want voice acting, I think you have to go with what you can get. There are tons of pretty damn talented voice actors out there that would do something for free. However, now we get into the question of, okay, let's say you're making an indie game, okay? Obviously, if you're there's so many scenarios here. Let's say you make an indie game and you convince someone to voice act for free, all right? And great, they voice act for free. And it sounds pretty good, it sounds passable, it's not amazing, but you know, it does the job. Let's say you sell your game and then you make, you know, your game becomes successful. What an awkward conversation you're gonna have as an indie dev when you have to explain that you didn't pay your voice actors. And it's gonna be awkward, right? You use an AI, okay, cool, you can use AI. Or you could do a revenue share with voice actors. You could say, hey, look, if you voice acting my game, if it sells well, after I recoup the amount of money I put into it in time, you can get like 2% of the sales or something, right? There's other options, right? Like there's so many different ways that you could do it. Like there's tons of different ways you can get voice actors. The only excuse, right, is that like you can't be bothered dealing with other people, which is, you know, sure, that's fine, but then just don't have voice acting in the game. Indie devs don't have to have voice acting in their games. How many games amazing indie games that we've played that don't have voice acting? So many. Void Stranger, Fear and Hunger, none of those games have AI. Some of the, you know, Fear and Hunger was like one of the, like, it was a huge game last year, and I'm sure that game sold extremely well. Balatro has no voice acting. Like, you don't need voice acting. It is a luxury. The same way that maybe having, like, an Unreal Engine with, like, insane polygons is a luxury, right? You want voice acting and can't afford anyone? Don't use AI. Do it yourself. Get your friends, you know? So, like, there's so many ways that you can make a game without requiring voice acting. It ultimately is a luxury, right? As we know, gamers, you know, if you want to make, like, a God of War, basically a movie, then yeah, you're gonna need voice acting, but you can tell very complex stories and not have voice acting. It's frustrating people say that, so I just don't think there's any excuse ever to have AI voice acting. I just don't think you need it. In Hollow Knight, the voice acting was done by the devs. Just so many things you could do, you know? Voice acting is an accessibility feature. That's fair, but I think often, let's be honest, most indie games, accessibility is a luxury to think about, unfortunately. You know, there is not a lot of indie games that do account for accessibility. That is something that, fortunately, you know, massive games, have the time and the money to be able to invest into. But I'm sure you could use, like, text-to-speech, you could use, there's so many different ways. It's like, but like, again, if you're not making any money from it, and you never plan to sell the game or anything like that, I think whatever, you can use AI, you know, I don't care. I don't think anyone should care because it's your own personal project at that point. But I think if you're ever planning to sell it, then you should. TTS is essentially AI. Not really, because someone has to train the TTS and someone has to give up their voice knowingly for TTS, normally. Obviously, there are TTSs that don't do that, and those are not normally used. There's normally just used by like YouTubers who are making dumb like YouTube slop. But the TTS, you would have to say a bunch of sounds for it to learn it. Like if you took like just clips from my stream, maybe with enough time and enough clips, you could get it. But the quickest way to do it is that you would give me a script full of nonsense that just makes me say a bunch of different sounds, and then I would, you know, you'd have it. People also don't mind how like Microsoft Brian sounds. People think that's fine. The law really needs to catch up. It's gonna be so I don't think this problem is going to be solved in like the next like 25 years. Because like, okay, let's say America and Europe, we pass laws. It's like, okay, what about the other countries? It's like, this is the internet. It doesn't mean shit unless every country agrees, or Steam or something says no AI voices, but they're not going to do that. I just don't think the laws are going to keep up for a long time. What about making companies make shovelware on Steam? Yeah, I had to crank out their shovelware. Look, I think there are a lot of things that AI is like good for, like in editing software now, even in like voice editing software, there's so many AI things that just make tedious shit easy. And I think that kind of AI is great. We should be like implementing tedious tasks to help speed them up that don't require like any like artful input. But you know, I think when you're trying to make art that is so inherently human, I think you take away so much from it, from just making a robot do it. It's like literally while watching, I feel like almost watching like YouTube shorts or TikTok is almost getting unwatchable for me, just because of the amount of AI shit, AI slop. What's up?
Hello, AI slop.
Yeah, we're talking about how AI in video games. It started because someone was like, why don't you play Liar's Bar? And I was like, I don't really want to play it because of the AI voice acting.
Oh, yeah, I played it one time, and then when I realized it was AI voice, I'm like, ugh.
It's so easy. The game's sold well. Just hire a voice actor. It's not hard. I could do all of those voices. Every single one of them.
I feel like there's so many people out there that are like willing to like voice act.
Yes, there's so many people willing to.
There's just no excuse.
You want to hear voice acting chat? Watch when I win this next round. You'll hear real screams of terror.